With the Republic saved once more and the Sith remnants defeated, Surik and T3 set off to find Bastila. Bastila would have gladly stood up against the Sith triumvirate if Revan were at her side, but she placed her son as her priority, protecting him from yet another war that engulfed the galaxy, so she went into hiding. When Surik and T3 found her, Bastila was eager to learn of any trace of Revan. T3 told of what happened on Nathema, how he spent months repairing the ship, and how it took him years to reach Republic space. T3 shared none of this with Surik before this very moment, keeping his silence as Bastila instructed. But Bastila was surprised to hear that T3 chose to stay with Surik, rather than continue his search. It seems T3 had put the exile's mission above his loyalty to Revan, and chose the safety of the galaxy over that of his master. Despite his current predicament, Bastila believed Revan would have been proud of T3's choice. T3 finished his tale, and Surik knew Nathema was the next destination. Bastila stood up and insisted that she go with Surik, but Surik reminded her that nothing has changed since Revan left. Their son still needed her. Surik asked Bastila if she was prepared to leave him behind. "Of course not," she spat, almost adding, "I'll bring him with me." But as quickly as the thought formed in her mind, she realized how reckless that would be. If she followed in Revan's footsteps, it would be a betrayal of the very principles that had sent him on his journey in the first place. She missed him, and she felt helpless, useless, forced to do nothing but wait. And with each day, the burden grew heavier. Surik told her that they all have their burdens to carry on the path ahead, and that was hers. Surik promised to do everything in her power to find Revan and to bring him back. Before they departed, Bastila stopped them to give Surik 2 items. The first was a holo recording she had made of their son's last birthday celebration. The second was a heavy object wrapped in black cloth. With Bastila's permission, Surik unwrapped it and stood wide-eyed as she observed Revan's mask, thinking it was lost when he was captured by the Jedi strike team. Bastila confessed that she took it before she brought him to the Order. She did not know why she felt the urge to do it. Perhaps even then she sensed their fates were intertwined. She kept the mask hidden from both him and the Jedi Order. It symbolized a relic of his dark past, and Bastila feared it might trigger something inside him, rekindle some spark of the dark side. But now she understood that she was wrong. She was selfish, and his dark past was a part of him. Bastila hoped the mask might reawaken crucial memories that will bring him to safety. But what if it does more than that? Surik added. What if it awakens the dark side within him? Bastila responded defiantly that she did not care, not if that power helped to bring him home. Blasphemous words for Jedi. She expected Surik to throw the mask to the ground in disgust. Instead, without a word, Surik simply rewrapped it in the cloth and tucked it away beneath her robes. Surik didn't know what to expect when the Ebon Hawk dropped out of hyperspace and began its approach to Nathema. T3 informed her of the status on the planet, but he was a droid, and he could not sense the Force. This also meant he could not notice its absence. As the ship drew closer, she was reminded of Malachor 5, and the instantaneous and colossal loss of life she had witnessed there. At first she assumed a similar tragedy happened here, but as they went to explore the empty buildings in search of answers, this didn't appear to be the case. She felt something was wrong with this world, but she could not quite understand it. She still carried the wound in the Force with her, a wound that would never heal. But here, the Force was simply gone. It could be that her wound protected her somewhat from the effects of this place, but with time, the sense of unease kept growing. They set out to find archives or records that would provide more information. With each step, the unease grew, as if a nameless, faceless, invisible creature was stalking them. Once they found the archives, Surik instructed T3 to collect as much relevant data from it as possible, so they may leave this place at once. Up until that moment, she was in motion, distracted by her search, ignoring the signs that something was obviously wrong, ignoring the scattered clothing, the silence, ignoring the emptiness of her voice as she spoke to T3. But now, as she waited for him to finish his task, she began feeling the full weight of this wretched place. Nature abhors a vacuum. The emptiness around her was pulling at her very existence, desperate to fill itself with something. And right now the only thing it could draw on was her presence, her energy.
It wants to devour me, mind and spirit, annihilate every trace of my existence.
She could feel the void pressing in on her from all sides. For a moment, she felt as if she would become undone, her entire body unraveling, ripping into subatomic particles and scattering across the entire surface of Nathema. She screamed at the void in her mind, resisting. She was more than just a collection of random matter and particles. She was a living being who would not allow herself to be taken. The affirmation pushed the void back for a moment, but it still clung to her, its tendrils pulling in closer. It was only a matter of time before she lost her sanity. Fortunately, T3 beeped triumphantly and retreated from the archives. Surik had no time to listen to what he discovered. She would examine the data later. She rushed back to the ship. Unaware, she must have started running at some point. The instant T3 caught up and boarded the Hawk, the ship took off. Surik kept the ship at full speed until they reached the edge of the solar system. Only once there were millions of kilometers between her and Nathema was she comfortable enough to slow down. With T3's help to decrypt the data, Surik spent several days analyzing the information, stopping neither to sleep or eat. Instead, she drew on the Force to replenish her as she pushed on. With T3's exceptional slicing skills, she poured through encrypted and confidential information from Nathema. She learned everything about who Vitiate was and what he did. She also isolated the planet to which he took his followers, Dromund Kaas. He blamed the destruction of Nathema on the Jedi, the Republic, and took the younger generations to Dromund Kaas to build his new empire. Relying on her skill and intellect, with T3 as backup, Surik infiltrated the society that lived on Dromund Kaas. T3 had recorded Scourge's face as he was taking Revan away. It was a simple matter to get his attention once she started asking around. As Scourge observed her battle his troops, he understood that Revan was not lying about his vision. He had not believed it at first, but he knew there was no other reason a Jedi would come to Dromund Kaas. He was intrigued by her. Unlike any Force user he saw, he watched Surik draw on the Force, and yet not use her emotions as fuel, or take pleasure or strength in the deaths of her enemies. Engaging in combat with her would be a true test of his skill, but he did no such thing, for he saw in Surik more than a simple Jedi, but a tool through which the Emperor could be stopped. Revan was telling the truth, and rescue had come to grant him his freedom. Revan had shared other visions with Scourge, one of them marking the Emperor's fall. Scourge wondered if that vision too would become reality. He agreed to help Surik free Revan, to unite against a common foe. He told her everything about the Emperor's plans. He was a threat to every living thing in the galaxy. Deep inside, Scourge approved of her distrust. If she trusted an enemy she just met so easily, he would have questioned her judgment. He provided physical proof, data of Darth Nyriss and members of the Dark Council plotting to overthrow the Emperor. And even without proof, Surik saw Nathema and the destruction the Emperor caused there. It was not difficult to believe that Scourge, knowing the same thing, would want to eliminate him. Revan was held deep in Darth Nyriss' stronghold. Even with combined efforts, Scourge and Surik could not break him out. They needed distraction. For this, Scourge was bold enough to approach the Emperor. he would betray Darth Nyriss and reveal her conspiracy. As he stepped inside the throne room, the throne turned to face Scourge. He laid eyes on the Emperor for the first time in his life. Scourge carefully thought of each step he took as he walked forward, the most important steps of his life, and potentially his last, kneeling before the Emperor until he was given permission to rise. The stories were true, and the Emperor's eyes were as black as the void itself. With a dry mouth and words barely leaving his lips, Scourge began speaking about how he discovered the information of Darth Nyriss's betrayal. With each reply from the Emperor, Scourge began to notice something strange about his voice. A grim theory passed through his mind. Was it possible that all the life he had consumed on Nathema still existed in some form within him? When he spoke, it sounded as if other, more distant voices spoke with his. Could it be he imprisoned their spirits within his physical form, slowly feeding on them over 1,000 years? Millions, still living within him. This was not the time to ponder such thoughts. Scourge pushed them away. He needed focus. One wrong word, and the Emperor may see through his scheme. Once he finished explaining Nyriss's betrayal, the Emperor stated that these were serious accusations, given her position as a member of the Dark Council, even with evidence. Scourge added that he would be willing to stake his life on them. The Emperor simply confirmed that he already has. Scourge felt a shiver go down his spine. The Emperor told Scourge that he will be rewarded for his actions, if he is right. If not, he will suffer a fate more terrible than anything he can imagine. As he spoke, the dark circles of his eyes swelled into a swirling red mist. Scourge cried out in anguish as the Emperor's mind brushed against his. He collapsed to the floor, shaking like a child. As the Imperial Guard purged Nyriss's stronghold, killing anyone connected to her, Scourge and Surik managed to reach Revan. The moment she saw him, her face broke into a wide grin. She rushed to embrace him after such a long time they spent apart. And after a moment she broke her embrace, as Revan noticed her nose had crinkled up. A really long time apart, Revan added. Surik quickly explained that she worked with Scourge to break him out. She handed Revan the items Bastila had sent, still wrapped in cloth. Disregarding the items, his heart rushed at the mention of his family. They were both well and safe. He then unwrapped the cloth to reveal the mask he had worn during the Mandalorian Wars. The moment his eyes locked on it, countless images flooded his mind. Years of forgotten people, places, and events. It was too much for his mind to bear as it went into sensory overload. His body went limp. Surik checked his pulse. He was still alive as his eyelids fluttered madly. Nyriss made her way towards the cell block, slowly, now aware of Scourge's betrayal. The Imperial Guard would make sure she never leaves the stronghold alive. But she would at least be satisfied once she ensured Scourge and his allies shared her fate. An old and withered Sith in appearance, Nyriss was as swift and powerful as a true Sith warrior in their prime. Scourge and Surik struggled against her assault through lightsaber combat, and once she used the Force against them, they would find themselves dazed on the ground. The air around Nyriss began to crackle as she gathered power to deliver the killing blow to all her enemies. Still dazed from her attack, Scourge could sense the energy building within her, and he knew there was nothing he could do to stop it. She was too powerful, her command of the dark side too strong. She declared herself as Darth Nyriss, Lord of the Sith, and the bringer of their doom. The lightning leapt from her fingertips, but it would find a home in the hands of another. As Revan stepped out from the cell, his face hidden behind the mask, the hood of his robe covering his head. With both hands held in front of him, his thumbs touching, Revan drew the bolts of lightning into his waiting grasp, absorbing their power. He responded to her triumphant claim. I am Revan Reborn, and before me, you are nothing. Nyriss' eyes went wide as Revan unleashed her own attack against her. She tried to block it with a force barrier, but it was a futile attempt, as the barrier dissolved instantly, and her body was engulfed in lightning, intense heat rising, consuming her, and leaving only a pile of charred ash. Scourge slowly climbed to his feet. As he came to his senses, he knew he made the right choice. If anyone had the strength to stop the Emperor, it was Revan.